how to change that in one sitting, in one group. And we're actually right now presently working at CHIO OCTC, a fused unit, to develop a plan how the hospital, the health system now, can engage youth in making decisions for future generations. So what is youth engagement? Youth engagement is a meaningful participation and sustainable involvement of young people in shared decisions in matters which affect their lives and those of their community, including planning, decision-making, and program delivery. The key part here is that it's meaningful for the youth and it's sustainable. It's not a one-time shot. And I like to use the analogy of baking a cake. If you're adding youth at the last stage, it's icing, it really is the decoration. Youth engagement is a key part in any mental health care system because it improves outcomes, it creates great relationships between therapists or mental health workers and youth themselves. And on a personal level, as a healthcare worker, we want nothing but the best for our young people, the young people who are involved in the program. And they are the ones that have a unique experience that we can't see and a vested interest more than anybody else. So they are key in engaging and improving the system. So they really are, I'm sure you've heard the expression before, nothing about us without us. All right, let's start with the lessons. Now, lesson number one, this one I can't stress enough, youth are incredible. They are really incredible. They are an asset, and if they're receiving treatment and it's a unidirectional movement, you're really missing the boat here. For example, youth they're not lazy, they're not unenthusiastic. They can be very enthusiastic, especially when it comes to their healthcare and the healthcare of their peers. For example, recently I've worked with a group of youth who had a very little baseline of knowledge of what research was, let alone program evaluation. And we got together and we tore apart our program evaluation at YouthNet and created something that was youth-friendly, more engaging, and as a result, it's going to have better outcomes for our programs. Youth are super, how should I say, they're natural problem solvers. They can identify very quickly what's wrong in the system that affects us or them. For example, the mental health care system. And like I said, in one sitting, they can really identify those problems and suggest solutions, and they're ready and they have the energy to put solutions into practice. And I think this example is best illustrated by the Youth Advisory Committee at YouthNet right now is publishing a youth-made magazine teaching why using words related to mental illnesses and their treatments, how that increases stigma, which one of the huge barriers of accessing care, of course. And this all came out of an initiative being like, you know what, I hear in the hallways that people are calling the weather OCD and examples like that, and they thought that it was taking away from their right and ability to seek treatment. So we put a stand to that, and we created something within a few months that will be published and distributed to all the school boards in the region. What's really, really key is that actually engaging youth is good for them. So it's good for developing skills and their self-esteem. What I really want to convey with you, and I do have copies that I'll be leaving with Sarah after this, is that it's not easy working with youth. It's, like I said before, there are a lot of ups and downs, and you wouldn't believe the amount of phone calls I get, and like, okay, I have a group of youth, or I want to engage a group of youth, we want to redesign the look or the functioning of our program. How do you do it? And these are little tips that I had to learn on my journey working with youth, and I'd like to share them with you today. And some of them are very basic, but that's what it takes sometimes. So, number one, youth, they have their own schedule. They go to school and they can't just leave and go to meetings at any time. So hosting after hours is really key. Next, welcoming space. Meeting in the basement of a hospital with no art, no walls, no windows is not ideal. No one wants to meet and thrive and create ideas in such a space. Next, keep safety a priority. They are young people. They may be struggling. A lot of them are struggling, especially in our context if we're working with high acuity youth. it's an opportunity to not only engage them in being part of something bigger than themselves, but also creating safe links. So I always have in my back pocket a youth-made resource list for whatever ails you, and I make sure I know all these items on them quite clearly. They have coordinates attached to them, and if a young person presents, whatever's going around, maybe it could be a crisis, maybe they're feeling suicidal. Be prepared to react and create with the youth themselves a safety plans. So the context of a group can actually provide safety in their participation. Next, I want to talk about being youth-friendly. So youth have told me that being youth-friendly is not necessarily being cool, but it's more related to being transparent. It's really related to having a sense of humor is key, of course, but being professional and knowing your role and working on your individual roles together and explicitly mentioning that role is part of being youth-friendly. Next, this is an obvious one, food. What social gathering is not centered on food? I mean, youth are no different. Maybe they're even hungrier than us, so provide food and they will come. Attached on to food is, especially in a context if you're having a working group with youth, I mean, they're providing hard work. We're working here and they're getting very little compensation. So I totally recommend providing honorariums, anything you can, fidgets, something, a little token of appreciation goes a long way. Seeking diversity. Youth really value having youth of different backgrounds, different opinions in one room. And your results at the end, whatever your endeavor is partnering with youth, will actually it would be beneficial for that endeavor. Finding multiple ways of participating. Youth are busy just like us. They may be very passionate, but may not be able to make all the meetings if you have face-to-face meetings. So find different ways that you can collaborate with youth. It may be using social media, which they're very apt to setting up for you very quickly. It can be, having different frequencies, having meetings that move around in different neighborhoods too. There are a lot of different ways that you can engage youth that really want to participate in a particular subject, but making it a bit easier for them. Attached to this is making it accessible. Majority of youth that I work with do not drive. They say they're quite poor, so they probably won't be driving according to them for their whole life. So they are tethered to the bus system, and if we're meeting at a place that takes an hour to get there, it just might be that obstacle that will prevent them from participating. So make it accessible, and providing bus tickets is really key here. The most important things I want you to leave here today with, out of this big circle of tips, is when working with youth, it's got to be fun, it's got to be social, and it's got to be meaningful for the youth. Finally, my third lesson. Everything I just told you may actually hinder your collaboration with youth, because flexibility is the third lesson here. If you're coming in and you're like, okay, last group, they wanted to meet here, and this is how they wanted to do things, and I'm so good at youth engagement, that might totally not work with other groups. Every group is different. So start from the get-go. If you have a research initiative or anything, involve youth as quickly as you can. I assure that you'll get better results and you'll get more participation. And finally, youth engagement is not easy. There are ups and downs, and I've had them. And I'd like to share with you 3 great resources that one of them, YouthNet, is in our region, next to, of course, the Center of Excellence that provide you not only with what youth engagement is, but how to do it in a practical sense, shared experiences from different organizations that have done youth engagement, and evaluation tools to make sure that you're doing it right. And finally, I'd like to please consider me as a resource. I'm leaving my business cards, and I hope to get more of those phone calls that I find really not annoying and actually encouraging. So thank you very much.